Thank you, Leah, for that very kind introduction. Thanks to the to ILSI North America and the CNS Organizing Committee for the opportunity to share some of the thinking behind AAFC's partnership for delivering its food for health research priorities. And I thought I would focus on what's been achieved in the past, the present, and future. And it was a good lesson for me because it was when I spoke to David about this, we quickly agreed on this title, and then I started trying to dissect the past and the present and the future, and really realized that it was a bit of a mush, and I couldn't clarify what was done in the past as opposed to what was being done now and what's going to be done in the future. So I'm going to try to attempt to do that. I think from the discussions we've had, I think one of the important things to recognize is that Agriculture Canada is I'm told it's an economic department. It supports the industry, and it supports industry's activities to improve the economic viability of the agriculture sector. So a lot of the programs are focused towards improving partnerships with industry. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit about the story of oats and soy, food-grade soybeans, and how Canada has partnered to achieve positive outcomes there. Talk about the recent Agriculture Regulatory Action Plan under Growing Forward 1, and partnering for health claim substantiation, and then delve a little bit into what's been some of the leftover work that was carried forward from the Growing Forward 1 program. And so last year, the department went through a restructuring. It was changed from the research branch to the science and technology branch. The strategic direction changed, the sector strategies changed, and the food for health research priorities changed a little bit. And the issue of whether or not AAFC has a mandate to engage and fund human clinical trials was something to be considered. I put this slide up here, really not as a vision test, but really to convince you that Canada has a long history of collaborating with industry, with partners, with academia. In terms of the story of oats, eventually a health claim was achieved for beta-glucan, but it took 20 years, many contracts, was very costly. So Canada values the importance of partnerships. In the past, there was the collaboration with Maple Leaf. Canada collaborated with Maple Leaf and plant breeders at the Harrow Research Center and produced a soy variety, Harrow Viton, in the late 80s. The Ottawa program focused on natto beans, which was done deliberately to capture the market in Japan. And then under the funding program called Matching Investment Initiative, more than 29 collaborative projects on food-grade soybeans worth $2.5 million were provided. In 2006, Canada changed its strategic research priorities, and there were 7 of them. Number 1 was enhancing human health and wellness through food and nutrition and innovative products. And then the second priority was enhancing the quality of food and the safety of food systems. Supporting this priority was a structure, and under Growing Forward 1, there was this structure in which industry, desirous of having a health claim, would approach the Food Regulatory Issues Division, FRID, which was a division of MISB, the Marketing Industry Branch of Canada, and together with Health Canada, they would look at the evidence that was provided by the industry and then make a judgment as to whether the strength of the evidence for advancing a health claim dossier to Health Canada was adequate or inadequate. If it was inadequate, then FRID would help the industry partner to prepare a dossier to submit to Health Canada for a health claim approval. If the evidence was not adequate, then together with the sector, the research branch, FRID, and Health Canada, gaps in the research knowledge would be identified, and this would be the source of targeted research to fill data gaps. And this was something that was undertaken at the time by the research branch. But that's changed. However, under supporting this structure was the Science Substantiation Program under Growing Forward 1, and the initial objectives were to establish domestic and international partnerships in science and to conduct research to address gaps in the knowledge needed to establish the validity of health claims and safety of novel ingredients. As a result, several projects were funded. As you can see, the funding period ranged from 2009 to 2013, and there were projects on barley, on prebiotics, flaxseed, lentils, whole soy, probiotics, etc. And I want to share with you just a couple of these studies. And so there are no results. And this is what I mean that the past is now moving into the future, into the present. So what I want to do, though, is to show some of the partnerships and the approaches that we've taken as research scientists within Canada to advance health claim substantiation in Canada. As an example, there was a study funded under Growing Forward 1 to determine whether the consumption of one serving of lentil on 5 days per week for 12 weeks will result in attenuation of 2-hour postprandial blood glucose. The partners here, it's led out of Guelph. Pulse Canada identified this need, provided the lentils. The foods were formulated at the University of Manitoba, and then the human feeding trials were conducted in collaboration with Tom Walliver and at CCARM with Peter Zaradka and Carla Taylor. Together, 5 foods were identified for the trial. Between the active foods and the placebo, there's a GI difference of 30. So this study is finishing up. Recruitment is in Toronto has been completed, but it's ongoing at CCARM. The program also funded animal studies, and Krista Power is here, and she can tell you about the partnership. But basically, her work was to focus on the role of flaxseed and flax supplemented products on biomarkers of colon health and disease. Specifically, she examined the role of experimental diets on gut barrier, integrity and function, the microbiota, and the community. And then it's the effect of flax and flax-purified bioactives when incorporated into different diets on chronic disease markers. I think one of the best models that we've used, and this is a bittersweet slide for me, one of the best models that we've used is a multi-center approach to examine the role of whole soy on lowering cholesterol. So we wanted to determine the efficacy of whole soy flour standardized to 12.5 or 25 grams of soy protein in lowering LDL cholesterol. I was led out of Guelph, a partner with University of Guelph with Alison Duncan. Soy 2020, an important partner, provided almost a ton of defatted whole soy flour. The muffins were formulated at the Department of Food Science at University of Guelph. Alison Duncan, Tom Walliver, and Heather Blewett led the different trial site. Rong Cao is involved in tracking the isoflavones in the food, in the flour, the food, and the blood samples, and we are training a student. This, as I said, is a bittersweet because Kaushik Sitaram, a brilliant cereal chemist, actually formulated a muffin, a soy muffin, masked the soy flavoring with vanilla, and then on top of that added either a banana or lemon. Unfortunately, 2 days ago, Kaushik passed away. So we've lost an amazing friend, collaborator, talented cereal chemist. So in the last year or so, last 2 years, iCanada has changed its strategic direction, and I want to delve into this a little bit, because I think in partnership it's really important to understand the mandate of their partners, the objectives of the partners, and see where there is course connection and connectivity with the objectives. So, as I said, the research branch is now called the Science and Technology branch, and this is what's going to happen from 2013 until 2018. The roles of this branch are to informing regulatory and policy decisions, produce far-from adoption applied science with broad stakeholder application, and support innovation to improve economic prosperity. Specifically, the objectives of the branch are to increase agriculture productivity, again, economic impact, enhance environmental performance, improve attributes for food and non-food uses, and address threat to the value chain. And of these, number 1 and 3 are relevant to our discussion here today. So I will focus elaborate on these 2 objectives. So in terms of the objective to increase agriculture productivity, the focus, as it relates to us here, is in supporting the sector in developing new agri-foods and or ingredients with novel health and or functional attributes to enhance competitiveness. So we're talking about economic advantage. The second strategic objective that's relevant to our discussion today is improve attributes for food and non-food uses. Here, the intention, the objective is to generate new knowledge to support the differentiation of Canadian agri-foods and ingredients, and to identify Canadian crops, livestock, and agri-food products with bioactive and or functional properties of economic interest. And as a sub-objective, to determine nutritional and physiochemical properties and or biofunctional benefits of Canadian crops. These strategic objectives, specific to this program, are being funded through Growing Forward 2. The Growing Forward 2 Agri-Innovation Program was implemented in April 2013. It was slow to start off. It will finish, we're expected to finish this by March 2018. It will and continues to provide continuous funding for crop, livestock, and food initiatives. And specifically, there are grants and contributions through industry clusters and agri-science projects. And so my colleague from Dairy Farmers this morning alluded to the collaborative nature of the industry cluster. And basically, what happens is that the industry comes together, create a critical mass of science and technology to support innovation in food for economic growth and safety, approaches iCanada with an in-kind contribution of between 25 and 35%, depending on whether it's a cluster program or an agri-science initiative. And I provided a link here from which one can find more information on AFC programs. Lastly, I want to touch on the issue of human trials within iCanada. When the Growing Forward 1 program was audited in May 2013, the Office of Audit and Evaluation looked at the ARAP program, that's the Health Claims, Novel Food and Ingredients Initiative, and commented that although the branch was lead for one component, that is scientific substantiation, the focus was to assist industry in addressing the knowledge gaps related to the scientific information required to obtain regulatory approval for health claims by Health Canada. So the question here was it an appropriate role for iCanada, and should the industry be leading this? So the audit was done, and these are the 2 main recommendations from the audit report. One was to review AAFC's research alignment of human clinical trials within the AAFC's mandate, priorities, and capacity. And secondly, to review AAFC's research project selection process to ensure that it adequately considered all AAFC research priorities. So a task force was formed to provide a recommendation as to whether AAFC should continue in this area, continue to fund and to be engaged. Because it was unclear whether AAFC's role in undertaking human clinical trials as part of the initiative was appropriate due to capacity limitations. The answer is yes. AAFC does have a mandate. And so here we have the nutrition pipeline at AAFC, 1, 2, 3, 4. So identification of bioactive substances, the in vitro evaluation, the use of cell culture to evaluate efficacy, the use of animal models. There was no question about funding and being involved in those areas. The issue was stage 5, the human trials. It is now clear that at the discretion of the minister, AAFC and the research branch may participate in human trials, but only through collaborative research and development agreements. Basically, there is now a clear criteria for AAFC's engaging and funding human clinical trials involving food. Primarily, 3 types of funding agreements will be used to promote this type of research. These are contribution agreements, or CAs, and basically this is a contribution agreement. The industry partner provides a part of the funding, and Canada provides Vote 10 funding to the industry to conduct the study. And it's up to the industry to bring all the partners together. And we can have a discussion as to the advantages and disadvantages of that. There's also a collaborative research and development agreement in which AAFC provides research support funded through Vote 1 money, which is allocated only, which is allocated to internal activities, which would be, for example, the money given to AAFC scientists to do a part of the work. And then there's a service agreement, which is a strict contract between an AAFC department and a contract research organization. So these are the 3 types of funding agreements that are in place now for engaging AAFC in human clinical trials. But of course, AAFC, being a government department, is very concerned about benefit, about risk and liability. So when the funding and when projects are submitted for funding, either externally or internally, there are 3 criteria that will be used to decide whether this is a project that will be funded. One is a liability framework, and that is basically ensuring that things are done safely, and that there's no conflict of interest. There's a legal framework. The Crown personnel or property involvement does not constitute a conflict of interest, and that the project is adequately peer-reviewed by external partners. There's also the architectural framework, doing things right, ensuring that the experimental protocol will be conducted in accordance with TCP TCPS 2 guidelines, that it's under the purview of a research ethics committee, and there's strict monitoring of adverse outcomes. And then there's the economic framework, doing the right things. So what are the things that we want to fund that would ensure prosperity within the agriculture sector? So here, there is the applicant has to show that that the proposal is targeted. It targets an agri-food product or sector, and it's important in raising the competitiveness of agriculture of products in Canada, and that there's a timely translation plan for dissemination of the results regardless of the outcome. So there must be some sort of knowledge translation. So within iCanada, there is now this roadmap being developed, and anyone who's been involved in a human trial will understand, will identify with this. You need to have clear oversight. You need to have clear reporting mechanisms. You need to be able to monitor. So this really is no different, but this is something that's going to be used internally, and it's still evolving because I'm not sure all the steps are in the right order. This is evolving, but these are the kinds of criteria Canada's management will now be using for funding human trials. Thank you.